November 11th, 1850. The first college fraternity, the Flat Hat Club, is founded when a bunch of dudes draw some dicks on some parchment. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And our guest is a friend of the show, one of Denver's funniest people, member of the Pussy Bros.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I said it twice, motherfuckers. Please welcome back Christie Buchele.
Thank you so much. Hi, guys. I'm glad to be back. This is one of my favorite podcasts to do because I get to nerd out on history, and that's my favorite.
Right. And knew we definitely wanted to have you back for World War I.
Yes.
A lot of it. So.
Yep.
This was my specialty, honestly. This is probably my favorite course I took in college. And I think the whole 20th century stems from World War I.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like so excited
I was going to make a joke about who doesn't want to get in on the grand old time that was World War I, but actually...
Turns out a lot of people...
We all get to get in on it. It's still in it.
That's why they called it a world war. Everyone was invited.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the Middle East, it turns out.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a party that doesn't stop. Also, listeners, just a heads up, there's going to be a very short turnaround on this episode. We are recording this the day before, and so there will be less editing than usual. So
Yeah,
sorry
which is
about
why
that.
sporadically through the course of this episode, I will reveal embarrassing secrets about Brian, and he won't have time to edit them out.
No,
Yeah, of course.
Sorry.
This will be a 3-hour-long episode just covering my high school years.
Turns out Brian is sexually attracted to porgs. Just something he told me the other day.
What's a porg?
It's the newest craze from It's the newest marketing opportunity from Star Wars.
Like the tiny furry alien from Star Wars. And I realized after what Zach said, it sounds worse if I explain it.
Yeah. Well, of course, you know what they are. I don't know what they are.
They are adorable, but not, again. Anyway, if you're new to the show, what we do is each episode we take a different topic from history. One person presents the official version of events. That'll be Christie in this case. And another person comes up with a bonkers, batshit alternate history, which will be Zach. And the winner gets to become the truth going forward. If you listen to our second Halloween episode, Belganess with Rachel Weeks, then you probably already got clued into this, but the alternate history won on that. But that was an amazing episode and very, very fun to do.
What was alternate history had crazy Swedish candies and I don't know, the murders were more fun.
They were just so campy, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to remember details of it and I fucking wrote it. Oh yeah, she turned out, she killed Willy Wonka and became him at the end. That's what it was.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah. But this episode, we're getting back to World War I, and we're going to be discussing the Christmas Truce.
Yeah.
Brian, you realize we have, according to our schedule, an episode that is supposed to come out the 23rd of December, and yet you are surrendering to this Christmas creep.
Yep.
Thanksgiving has not even occurred yet.
I love that.
Well, it's
Xmas
early
creep.
on in the war, so I mean, you can only do so much before you move on, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so rare we have a themed episode for Christmas because history does not respect the idea of goodwill towards men is not reflected in much of history.
Not at all.
This is honestly one of the more Christmassy Christmas episodes you could possibly have.
It is. It's delightful. Yeah.
Right?
Well, how do we start?
Christie, take it away if you're ready.
I am here to talk about the true Christmas truce. Well, I mean, you'll decide what's true at the end, I guess. But the Christmas Truce is I do think it's one of the like most lovely stories in history. It was the Christmas of 1914. The war had been going on since August, September time, so it's only 3 or 4 months in. People are still thinking like, oh, we'll be home by next spring. And so, I mean, it hadn't really gotten too serious yet. But the Christmas Truce essentially was where
it was a strictly above the clothes war at this point.
Yes, yeah, exactly. They did not.
Yeah, before the introduction of the gas that got inside of your clothes.
Yeah.
And skin, as it happens.
And lungs. It actually
just
liquefied your lungs. Okay, we'll be back with more fun later on in this series. Let's stick to the bright side. But yeah, it was, so they really, I mean, I've heard a few different versions, and there's a really good website. I think it's called Operation Christmas Truce, where they are trying to collect all the letters home that soldiers had like written, because those were the only real accounts. Like they weren't really public. Like the media, I mean, the media in 1914 is nothing like what we see today. So information back home to the front was much slower. But a lot of people only found out about this because of letters written home to family members and things like that. So really, I mean, I've heard a few different things on how it started, but like on Christmas Eve, the Germans, they actually sent them all Christmas trees to the, like Germans are real big on their Christmas trees, and they sent Christmas trees to the front.
I don't know why, but for some reason when you said Germans are real big on their Christmas trees, it sounded like a drunk uncle about to
it pretty much is. I mean, they put Christmas trees in the trenches. Like that's something a drunk uncle would do. So,
I think Germans
just in his
probably
studio
like
that
just like home, except for you're living in gangrene and fucking puddles, and your feet are falling off, and your friends are buried into the side of the walls of the trench. Just like your Christmas. Yeah.
I am correct that didn't Germans create the tradition of the Christmas tree?
They did, yeah.
That's why had to translate.
Serious. Like, O Tannenbaum, that's like...
Yeah.
That's the Germans. But they a lot of this started, so they got Christmas trees. That's what they got at the front. I brought my Princess Mary Christmas box. This is one of my best. Here, you can show Zach through the computer.
Oh, I have the camera turned off, but...
Oh, sure.
Hang on.
No, you have the camera turned on. This time the tables are turned, Brian. You have had the camera turned on the whole time, and I've had it turned off. I brought my
Princess Mary Christmas box, and this was... it's a little like brass box that was also sent to the side of the Allies. So the British and French, and they're on each side of the box as well as the corners lists the different allies at this point. So you have France, Britain, Japan is even on there, Montenegro, Serbia, Belgium. There's a couple more, but anyways, this was paid. Like, she wanted this to initially come out of her front. She was really like, it was a truly altruistic thing. Like, she thought every soldier in the ocean and every soldier on the front should have something. So she sent out these boxes, and they would come with a little pad of paper, some tobacco for smoking.
Christie, I think I lost the thread slightly. Who is sending these boxes
Princess
out exactly?
Mary. Princess Mary.
Oh, okay.
So she's the princess of the British royal family.
I see. Okay,
is who sends these out, and in the middle of the box is her silhouette. So it's still very like, oh, look at me, look at this nice thing I'm doing. But yeah, so there was a paper, cigarette, like tobacco rolling papers, and a pen, and the pen to write, and the pen actually was shaped like a bullet.
Oh,
yeah,
that's fun.
yeah, what a little like neat little thing. So I love this story so much. I actually had Jordan Dahl bought this for me for Christmas a couple years ago because it's something I've always wanted. I think it's one of the most amazing stories. But
now, I'm sorry if I missed this.
Yeah.
Did this go to all of the Allied troops or just the British troops?
All of them, I believe.
Okay.
All of them. So it was whoever was fighting. At least her intention was for them to make it to all of them. I'm not sure if that actually happened. So, but for the most part, I mean, many people, and there weren't millions and millions of people fighting yet. So that's another part of that. So so that went out on Christmas Eve, or a few days before Christmas as well. And the night on Christmas Eve, along the front, a lot of the German soldiers were singing these like Christmas songs, whether it is O Tannenbaum or Silent Night. They were singing them in German. And the English on the other side, even though they don't speak German, they knew the melody, and they were actually singing back to them in a lot of cases. And so they kind of realized the next day on Christmas Day, started kind of popping their heads up, being like, "Merry, you guys over there, Merry Christmas!" Like, because
popping your head up in a trench is one of the worst things you could do.
Right. You're asking to get to get shot at, but I think
not
they
to
all
mention,
which is how the British did it, because they were very polite.
Yeah.
I think,
well, and at this point, I mean, millions and millions of people hadn't died. The anger and bitterness was not there yet. They thought this was going to be a nice, short little war. Let's be home by spring. Like, they really did not realize what this would turn into. And
I think also the fact that they were singing back and forth, the other danger was that this could have been misinterpreted as a classic "you got served" situation.
Yeah,
which would have
exactly
derailed the entire truce before it occurred.
A classic situation. That's what led to the Russo-Japanese War, I believe, actually.
Right. So the next day on Christmas Day, they start popping their head up, start talking. So they start exchanging gifts. A lot of people, there's a lot of reports of them playing soccer because that was their game. And I imagine a lot of the German soldiers walked away with the Princess Mary Christmas box themselves. They were exchanging a lot of different things. I mean, they knew a lot of same people. I mean, France and Germany not not far apart from each other and everything. And of course this is happening like in Belgium too, and in like all these border regions. Right, exactly. So really in some places, like, people became friends. Like, this truce went on for a couple of weeks in some places, 2-3 weeks, and like, people did not want to go back to fighting. They did not want to do it, and eventually it was like by command that they had to start shooting at their friends again. It was nuts. But then again, when you reach Christmas time in 1915, then there's so many people have died. The conditions in the trenches turned so much worse that at this point, that would never happen again, and that would never happen. I mean, that the anger and bitterness of all of it. It's almost like the last innocent moment of war that we've ever seen in modern history, I would think. I mean, given everything that stems from it. Yeah. And I mean, my understanding is partially also that a lot of the officers and higher-ups after the truce were especially on guard to sort of discourage it, even if it would have happened on its own, which, again, given everything that happened, it might not have. Yeah, it didn't happen again. I mean, it wasn't, again, they watched too many friends die a year later, and it's not like it wasn't like it is now where people go on a deployment, for a very specific amount of time. They know when they'll be home. It's very in and out. Like, people stayed on the front for, months and months or the whole year. I mean, it just like they lived there. And so, the like innocence or probably like boyish naivety of young soldiers was not there again ever again. Because this is also like, we touched on it a little bit with the gangrene and the rats and the dead bodies in the wall, but this is life in the trenches also. Yeah. Which is like probably worse than we can even imagine. Yeah, it's a nightmare. I mean, I know several stories where like trench warfare got so bad that like they used to have this saying that would be like, oh, either you're going to get up into no man's land and you're going to make it over to the other side's trench, or you're going to die. So there's nothing to worry about. It's like either it was either you're going to succeed in your mission or you're going to die. And like, and so it was like, there's no need to worry about anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't all Amazonian women with shields, Wonder Woman.
No, it definitely
You've misportrayed
was
trench
not.
warfare.
Yeah, I'm glad that's your angle.
That scene was left on the cutting room floor. The horribly depressing trench foot and disease that was rampant.
Yeah. It was bad. I mean, they were living with rats, just rats, going through the trenches. It was very rainy. It was very like even unseasonably rainy, like the first few years of the war, and that moisture just spread disease. And then people were dying at such alarming rates after this that they couldn't actually like get rid of the bodies like fast enough. They would literally have to bury them into the side of the trenches.
Right.
Just to like, and sometimes you're like a hand would pop out of the wall, like, and be hanging. And then it became like, good luck to shake the dead man's hand. And if you didn't, like, it's like you didn't knock on wood or something like that. Like, I mean,
of course, these are like the natural like superstitions that are going to develop in that situation.
Right.
But also,
yeah, it's nuts. I think there's a scene of the Christmas truce, like they try to depict it in All Quiet on the Western Front. I believe that there is a scene in there that they kind of allude to. I don't think they call it the Christmas truce by any means. They just sort of model this scene of the two sides coming up and out of the trenches in that way. So, yeah.
And also the rats probably had a very nice Christmas.
Yeah, they did. The
rats made out great, actually, in World War I.
Yeah, there was a lot of food to go around for the rats. So.
That's so upsetting. But also, when you talk about the unseasonable rain, that makes me think of I can't remember how it's pronounced. Right? It's Passchendaele.
Yeah.
But like the battlefield became so muddy that people running across no man's land became stuck in the mud and
they literally it was like quicksand. So it was nuts.
It's charming when it's one rat dragging a pizza, but when it's 40 rats dragging most of a body, suddenly
you're like, whoa, hello. But I do.
You can't really make a vine out of that.
You could.
You could, yeah. I just really love the idea. And I think it's something that, I wish that we still did a little bit better, is where, what they saw when they saw, because they could actually see, at nighttime on Christmas Eve, you couldn't see into the other side, but because they put candles in the Christmas trees, the Germans, it like actually lit up the whole front from the other side. And then they start hearing this song, and that's actually, they found this common ground. They're like, oh, we're not so different. Those Jerrys over there aren't so bad,
Right.
And it's not, because of the way that warfare is fought, and since World War I and the technology that comes with World War I, and I'm sure that you'll get into that later. You really take the personal side, like, you don't have to get close to your enemy to kill them anymore. And that really, dehumanizes war in a way that is dangerous, I think. And this is kind of that last moment of humanity, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it is like, it's that moment in history that's like a trade-off where it's like, well, maybe if you have this technology, you're safer, but you lose something else.
Right. Well, you don't understand it's much easier to pull a trigger or push a button for a bomb when you never have to see it kill anyone.
Yeah, it's like it's
first
drones
hand.
basically.
Yeah.
Is where we're at now with it.
Yeah. But even then, just sending off the gas was very. That's not hand to hand combat. The gun, the weapons and the way that they designed them for mass killing without having to get close. You just didn't. It really. Desensitized war, really.
You just lay out the barbed wire and like people get caught in that, and it's just
that's actually the closest you'll see is somebody who gets close to your barbed wire gets stuck on your barbed wire, and you have to watch them die. Like you have to watch their face lose its light. Yay! We're
Yeah,
having
so
fun
Christmas,
now.
everyone.
Our special Christmas episode.
But I do. I love this.
This is like the Christmas from Gremlins that Phoebe
Yeah.
Cates described.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I love the story. Again, Operation Christmas Truce, if that website is still up, is a great place to go because they actually have like photocopied digital copies of these letters that people wrote home, and it's really this last good moment before we were all destroyed by war forever. So
Yay!
Every week, Denver's own Real Nerds Podcast sees a new movie and we podcast our experience to the world.
I think sometimes we're funny.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm talking, not when you're talking, not when you're talking.
Oh,
You know, it might help if you told them that we're on iTunes or we're on Stitcher so they could find a place where you can actually listen to us.
Oh, okay, Brad. We're also on Twitter at Real Nerds, and we have an Instagram account. Boom. Commercial, Brad. Cut, paste, upload. We like to have fun.
Sure. I like fun.
James, you're very bad at improv. RealNerdsPodcast.com.
Zach, are you ready for your Christmas story?
Yeah.
lighten it up for us here. Maybe you'll win that way.
We'll see what I can do. I mean, because this is the lightest episode of our World War I coverage.
It has to be. Yeah.
And
I've
also,
actually-
yes, that Operation Christmas Truce website, I believe, is still up.
Yeah. Good.
Yes.
Actually, I think there's been there's a film about this that I've been meaning to watch for some years. A French film called Joyeux Noël, or however that would be said in French. I heard it's quite good, but I've never gotten around to watching it, and I may have to one day. I hear it's a very faithful and sort of touching retelling of this particular event, but that is not. Faithful
your job.
retellings are not my purview in this particular case. But yeah, the 1914 Christmas truce indeed occurred in a manner, the exact manner that was more or less described here. But the part that you may not know is that, in fact, it did continue for a couple more years. Mostly the things that it's notable for are, first, it created some of the Christmas traditions that we still observe to this day. For example, one of the best ways to pass the time when you were in the trenches for months and months is to tell stories of being back home. And they would call these, throwback stories, like throwbacks to when you were back in London or whatever, the Bronx or whatever these people came from. And
the Bronx.
The Bronx.
I mean, that was
97%.
Christmas 1917. But
I think, yeah. When the Christmas truce happened, they'd get together, and obviously they would tell these throwback stories with a Christmas bent. So, they'd tell their Christmas stories, and obviously, whenever it was time to tell their stories, instead of saying throwback stories, they would always just say TBS. So it was 24 hours of Christmas story
God damn it.
on TBS, and that's where it comes from
I was
every year.
the whole time you were
Wow.
on that anecdote, I was like, how is he going to pull this
Yeah.
together? And it was anyway, sorry.
24
Yeah,
hours
I mean,
of a
there's-
Christmas truce.
Yep.
on
Yeah, I mean,
TBS.
There's clearly other ones.
Oh,
Obviously, the stocking by the fire, of course, was a bloody sock with a foot that had fallen off due to trench foot.
Yup.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, I have scratched out here mistletoe. Is that anything? It's not.
Okay.
Did
Glad
you know they actually wore bunny suits too because they would let the ears pop up over the trench first, and then
Oh,
if they got shot at, then you knew, don't go any further.
Like that old, Groucho Marx thing where they'd put, a hat on a stick
Yep.
around a corner where somebody had a gun. Yeah, okay.
And they're like,
That's
"Oh, Merry Christmas! You tried to shoot me. Oh well."
Not everybody was pleased about the Christmas truces. Actually, and this part I read is real, that during one of the Christmas truces, apparently during one of the points where like a ceasefire occurred, I'm not sure if it was how widespread these truces were, but loosely involved was a young Adolf Hitler who actually thought it was unbecoming to behave that way in war. So even at like 20 years old, this guy was a pretty huge asshole.
What a dick.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely see the development of his mindset at that point.
Yeah. Actually, when Adolf was being such a Scrooge about Christmas, the Christmas truce, they decided he resolved to survive the war at that point, and they sent down an angel to do a reverse It's a Wonderful Life on him to show him how much better the world would be if he weren't born. But at that point, he was just kind of a shitty 20-year-old, so the world was mostly the same whether he had been born or not, and it fell apart. That angel failed to receive his wings, as far as I'm aware. Well, I think the fact
that he, didn't have any impact thus far really is what incited him to move forward and try to have a big impact. And man, did he succeed. So
sure.
Yep.
Yeah. We're still talking about him.
24 hours of Hitler on TBS.
Yeah, that's the weird thing on TBS. It's 24 hours of Valkyrie.
As the years went on and the Christmas truce became a tradition, as I have established, certain people also thought it was bad for the war effort. Kaiser Wilhelm was against it. And in 1916, he was, while being such an anti-Christmas truce bummer, one night on Christmas Eve, he went to bed and was visited by 3 million ghosts, which approximate only a tiny part of the number of people who died in World War I.
Yeah, I mean, they had a lot of places to be, and you know, the fact that only 3 million chose him, I get it.
There were not a lot of ghost jobs at the time, so they kind of doubled up. They were getting a huge surplus of ghosts, but the employment numbers for ghosts were just not rising with the same velocity. So they said 3 million.
I actually wanted to write a sketch about this Christmas box, claiming that it's haunted by a very polite British soldier ghost, and every time he goes to scare me, he's just like, "Oh, sorry." Like, that's the joke. That would be the whole joke. Or like, if I try to open up my shower and he's trying to scare me, I'd just be like, I'd have soap in my eyes, and then he'd eventually just help me and give me a towel because he's just too polite. It's just a gentleman ghost. Like, he's trying to be scary, but it's not really his thing. That's the sketch. Anyways, go ahead.
Anyways, as the truce became longer and longer, there was a new war tactic where, while the ceasefire was inactive during those weeks, every night one army, the German army, would come out of their trenches and move the British trench back with a lot of digging a few inches every night. And that way, they could gain ground in the war bloodlessly, and this was known as the Christmas creep. And every year, as the truce became longer, the Christmas creep was more and more intense. And one war correspondent journalist, Sir Ernest Dunlop Swinton, who's a real man with the most British name, became an active enemy of the Christmas truce. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do a little mixing in. I'm going to say this journalist was possessed by the continuing immortal. He was actually the immortal form of Ivan the Terrible, renowned journalist who is now Rupert Murdoch.
Oh yeah, I forgot we did that.
Yeah, I don't know. Some guest came up with this plot line.
I think it was Kobos.
But Ivan the Terrible, as we know, is an immortal journalist who is now Rupert Murdoch. But at this time, he was Sir Ernest Dunlop Swinton, war correspondent, and he was against the Christmas truce because of the Christmas creep. And so he advocated that we start having war on Christmas. And so the very first War on Christmas narrative began.
I admire how tight that one is.
Something he would reuse once he started the News Corp Corporation many years later in a slightly different context. But yeah. I also tried to write something for what was going on back home at this time, but it turns out there's not a lot of like female-led Christmas movies or stories. All I got was Bad Mom Christmas, which I haven't seen, that one part of Little Women, which is just kind of a normal Christmas, and then a bunch of Hallmark movies, like, about finding love at Christmas, like, some bullshit you see called, like, A Christmas Fuckboy or something that comes on every year.
There's a really good one called The Christmas Ghost. It's not good. It's very bad, but...
They're all bad.
There's a lot of really awful but wonderful Christmas love stories on Netflix.
Did you ever watch...
We
watched one of those.
Mixing up Christmas Ghost and The Christmas Shoes.
No.
Oh, okay.
This is much worse.
Those Christmas,
or better,
those Hallmark,
depending on what you're into.
This is kind of unrelated, but those Hallmark Christmas movies they always have this kind of wholesomeness that appeals to people who are probably like the worst people. Because I feel like the underlying message of every single one of those Hallmark Christmas movies is like, we aren't saying this out loud, but wouldn't the world be better if it were just white Christians? It's like always that kind of thing going on in the background. Those movies are the worst.
Incidentally, I remember, Zach, you and I watched a Thomas Kinkade Christmas movie. Thomas Kincaid's Christmas Cottage, I believe.
Yeah, there's a podcast where we discuss it.
Abhorrent in every way. Except Chris Elliott was in it, so that was kind of okay.
Well, as you can guess, today at work I just threw a bunch of Christmas memes into a bag and tried to make it work out because I got behind the wire on this particular alternate history. So basically, this series of vignettes has constituted my alternate history for the Christmas Truce.
I loved it. Thank you.
The real Christmas Truce, of course, being a beautiful story in one of the darkest periods of human history. Yep. So I didn't expect a win on this one anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. Well, before we get to judgment, just wanted to mention a few things, listeners. We have our Patreon page where you can buy your right to vote for a little bit, because that's how America works. Our website, revisionistpodcast.com. Pretend I said that correctly. And as always, we ask that you rate and review the podcast on iTunes, which is mad helpful. Also, check out our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we are part of the Denver Podcast Network, a local podcast collective. And one of the other shows on that network is Discover Weekly, which is a show where two musicians and a music nerd pick a theme each week, and they make a playlist based on that theme and basically talk shit about each other's playlists, and it's really fun, and they really know what they're talking about, and It's great to listen to.
Who hosts that?
Cello Negro.
Oh, okay.
Daniel Aarons, and a third person whose name is escaping me right now, so I'm going to edit this part out.
Okay. Wow. Rude.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I have the internet on my phone. I can look it up, but that's going to be...
No, it's fine. It's fine. They know who they are.
Exactly. But check out Discover Weekly, and you can find all the Denver Podcast Network shows at denverpodcast.net. Christie, you have a new show in Denver called Queen City Companion.
I do.
Which is also a podcast.
It
now.
is.
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I was approached to do a storytelling show, but we have a lot of true storytelling shows here in Denver, and I really wanted to help encourage writers and performers and musicians and anybody who really wants to just try to do anything weird to have a venue to sort of try new things. So this is I call it an all false storytelling show because my only requirement is that whatever you write is fiction. It's not written from the perspective that is you. in your true life. But from there, it can be anything. It can be a script. It can be a song. It can be a jingle. It can be a monologue. It can be a puppet show. Whatever. I don't care. And so that's being produced by Mutiny Information Cafe. They are starting a new podcast mini network that's just based on different storytelling shows they're doing every month. So Queen City Companion is part of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Also, you're co-host of Empty Girlfriend.
I am. Yeah.
Fabulous podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that's a relationships podcast. Life tips and love quips from unqualified professionals. That one I've been doing for about 3.5 years. So plenty of episodes to catch up on that, but I love it. If you like talking about that gushy love shit, get in on it.
And so many amazing guests on that show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's one of my favorite podcasts. Seriously, check that out.
Thank you.
Also, you're a member of Pussy Bros with other friends of the show.
Janae Burris and Rachel Weeks. Just a group of lady comics who are out there trying to create shows and book other women and people of color, and it's been awesome so far. So
yeah, and all their shows are fucking fantastic.
Yes.
So please check them out.
Check them out.
As for me, Nighttime Tonight happens once a month. The next one is November 16th, which will be the Thursday after this comes out. So come check that out. This month we're raising money for a group called Life After Hate, which is the only group other than the FBI that's working on getting people out of hate groups and working on deprogramming them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. They actually, interestingly enough, President Obama, before he left office, gave them a $400,000 grant.
Wow.
And then after the current president took office, that grant was cut.
Oh, amazing. Such a shocker.
Such a complete
that was surely an oversight, Brian.
To anything.
Brian, that was an oversight, correct?
That was not intentional. Come on.
Yeah, I'm thinking that was
Trump's
probably just a mistake.
That bad.
Just like when he cut all of the FBI's investigations into white supremacy groups was just kind of a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Totally. He just read it wrong. It's not his fault.
He's kind of like a bumbling Clouseau type more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it. Anyway, now is the time for judgment.
And actually, I want to say before we do judgment, I said early in the podcast that I thought this was jumping the gun because we should have waited for our Christmas time episode. But since we were talking about this subject briefly, actually, since this is about a moment of true peace and joy in a dark period, that's kind of how I felt on this recent election day. So maybe it is an appropriate time for this episode to have aired.
Again, to clarify, Election Day 2017.
Oh yeah, not that other one.
No,
Yes.
but this one recently, it
The
did.
good
It
one.
felt like
if
the pendulum swinging back a little bit. It felt good.
The first
And
day
if you're
I felt like I
listening
could
in
breathe
the
in like a
future,
year.
if you're listening in the future, hopefully the most recent election day felt very similar.
Yeah. If we still have those,
Yeah.
let us know.
We're laughing so we don't cry.
Everyone. History will end soon. Anyway.
Actually, it's appropriate because our last year, our first episode after Election Day also featured Christie.
Yeah.
And it was a very non-traditional one.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
with me and Janae.
Yeah.
We were so mad.
Yeah, everyone was. That was a very strange time when everyone needed to cry and say
Yeah, I
things.
do. Oh, man. We don't have time to get into it, guys.
Yeah.
We'll do
We
it
do
in
not.
20
We
years
do.
when we have time to
Yeah.
talk about this history.
Yeah, no
Look
one
out for our
loves the
2018
2010s.
Election Day special. Christie, I'm sure you'll be back for that
I
one.
will. I promise.
As for Judgment, they're both such good stories. I really like Zach's turn at the end of just sheer honesty. But the real Christmas Truce is something that has been special to me for years. And Christy, you did such a good job of telling it.
Yes, this matters.
Mm.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's
I really liked the Christmas creep part, though.
Yeah, that was a really great
the
line.
highlight of my night. So thank you, Zach.
but listeners,
Absolutely.
it's now up for voting, so go ahead and do that. But for everyone here at the Revisionists, I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And were you going to do a pun name? Or did you?
I don't know. I was thinking about trying to do like a Santa Christmas ho ho ho. He's coming. I don't know.
Yeah, great. That really came together well.
Zach Po Ho Hoers. I did it.
Hell yeah. For everyone here at the Revisionists, have a good time.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Have a merry time. I'm still jumping the gun on that a little bit.